I put my gout into remission, and you can too, and we are starting right now. First, why do we get gout? This would be the gout hypothesis, and we need three things. We need circulating uric acid, we need the inflammatory cascade, and we need the initiation of the NLRP3 inflammasome. This is a hypothesis that I recently explained in a video that is linked above. Gout is a metabolic disease. Therefore, any sort of program to gain remission from gout requires that we negate or we decrease the amount of uric acid in the circulatory system. We stop the inflammatory cascade and we inhibit the NLRP3 inflammasome. An important concept to keep in mind here is that high uric acid in our circulatory system is caused primarily by two reasons. The first is the overproduction of uric acid, and the second thing is a kidney defect where we are not excreting enough uric acid. Those two factors, keep them in mind in the background while we go through the following video. So what are the two main drivers of uric acid production? First and foremost, we have the consumption of sugar, high fructose corn syrup, agave syrups, and processed food, the main component of which is fructose. And fructose drives a sudden and significant increase in uric acid, which over time contributes to the kidney dysfunction in terms of the proper excretion of uric acid, therefore elevating fasting uric acid. Secondly, we have the consumption of chronic alcohol, and alcohol is metabolized in parallel to fructose with similar outcomes: a sudden significant elevation in uric acid, and chronic alcohol consumption over time generates high fasting concentrations of uric acid. Therefore, any lifestyle change that you choose to take requires the elimination of sugar, high fructose corn syrups, agave syrups, and processed food, along with the elimination of alcohol. However, once you have lowered the sugar and the alcohol, what are other contributors to uric acid levels in the circulatory system? Two remaining factors are the consumption of protein and exercise. When we consume protein, we get our protein from two sources: animal sources and plant sources. Both of those sources have their protein content in the form of cells. When we digest these cells, we also consume RNA and DNA. When we break down RNA and DNA, we generate purines. And the purines are composed of adenine and guanine. And when these are broken down, there is a process that results in the formation of uric acid. Exercise also causes a rise in uric acid. There's basically three types of exercise. We have high intensity exercise, we have weightlifting, and we have what I call the moderate or movement types of exercise. Movement type exercise might be going for a walk, out for a couple of miles, something like that. The point is, we have basically three categories of exercise, and in order of their effect on uric acid, the HIIT or the high intensity exercise generates more uric acid than weightlifting, which generates more uric acid than basic movement. Before we look directly at the effect of protein and exercise on my uric acid, we need to understand what my uric acid fluctuations look like over the course of a day. So I monitor my uric acid using a UA Sure handheld meter. And now the data that you're seeing here reflects, this was from 2019, from the year 2019. And this reflects what my uric acid fluctuation looks like over the course of a day. And what you can see from my data, and this is the line at the top of the slide, is that my uric acid is highest, my fasting reading, and then over the course of a day it decreases. Over the last 3 years, before I went on to allopurinol, and I'll show you more data on this aspect later, my average uric acid has been situated between 8 and 8.5. On this slide, we're just looking at uric acid data, and basically the first 2 points are my fasting uric acid for that morning, a subsequent reading. Remember that over the course of a day, my uric acid steadily lowers overall. And then you can see the point where I had my breakfast. In this case, it's eggs and chicken hearts and cream cheese. And you see a corresponding rise in uric acid because of the digestion of the protein. That rise in uric acid holds steady in this case. And then you can see where I introduced a round of exercise and the uric acid trends up again. If I was to show corresponding data extending that day out, eventually what you see is the uric acid begins to come down again. Okay, this slide is a little more complicated because I've got the uric acid, the blood glucose, and the ketones all in the same diagram. The zero axis, where I started the experiment, is a point where I had performed exercise 2 hours earlier. And so the spots that are on that line are values that I took 2 hours post-exercise. The uric acid is at the top, and you can see that it's elevated. It's almost at 9 mg per deciliter. And that's because of the exercise that occurred 2 hours earlier. Tracking in the figure, you can see where I had breakfast, eggs and chicken liver. Initially, the uric acid drops a little bit. Remember that it takes time for your body to digest the protein that you just ate. And so you can see that the uric acid indeed then rises post-meal before it begins to come back down to the baseline. The ingestion of protein and or exercise cause an increase in uric acid, but my uric acid rapidly returns to my baseline, which until I went on allopurinol was between 8 and 8.5 mg per deciliter. And then later between 6 and 8 mg per deciliter. So let's return to the matter at hand, and that's understanding what controls the uric acid, the production, and then the excretion. So the damaging factor here is long-term chronic, and I'm talking about decades. Remember, I'm 63, and when I was diagnosed with gout, I was in my very late 50s, and then pre-diabetes when I was 60 years old. So that's 6 decades of eating the standard American diet. And at the point where I was an adult, I was drinking 2 to 3 beers every single day. And because of the standard American diet, I also was ingesting sugar, high fructose corn syrups, agave, and processed food. Think about that. 6 decades. It's dominantly the sugar and the alcohol that are causing the damaging effects. There are even some experts that want to classify fructose as a poison. So why is the keto lifestyle a good choice for gout remission? The main reasons are because it lowers systemic inflammation, which means it interrupts the inflammatory cascade, which prevents the formation of the NLRP3 inflammasome. Additionally, the keto lifestyle is called keto because we lower the carbohydrates, which lowers insulin expression and opens up the fat-burning pathways. A consequence of us burning fat in the keto lifestyle is we produce small molecules which are called ketones. And one of those ketones is called beta-hydroxybutyrate. And beta-hydroxybutyrate directly inhibits the NLRP3 inflammasome. So in the keto lifestyle, we're hitting the gout condition with a double whammy. We lower systemic inflammation and we inhibit the NLRP3 inflammasome because we've lowered the inflammatory cascade, and we hit the NLRP3 inflammasome with beta-hydroxybutyrate. So let's ground ourselves here. In the keto lifestyle, we have eliminated the sugar and the alcohol, but we've also cut down into the complex carbohydrates. This is causing a reduction in the insulin, which opens up our fat-burning pathways. And in the process of burning fat, we produce small fat molecules called ketones. And ketones are organic acids. And when they are excreted from the kidneys, they compete with the uric acid. In English, that means as the ketones are excreted in the urine, they block the excretion of uric acid. So uric acid rises. So let's take a critical look at this. In this slide, you're looking at 3 years of my uric acid fasting values. And what you can see is 3 clusters of points. At the top, we have my uric acid values from 2019. And you can see that those values are high. That's a reflection of the fact that the ketones that I'm producing and that are being excreted in the urine have caused the rise in my uric acid values. Next, in the middle of the data, you can see a new cluster. This was a quantum shift that happened in 2020, so during my second year in the ketogenic lifestyle. And the average value of uric acid in that cluster is between 6 and 8 mg per deciliter. Now in my third year, about halfway through it, I made the decision to go on the uric acid lowering drug allopurinol. And I've been on allopurinol since June of 2021. I think it was like around mid-June. And you can see that now my new cluster is between 5 and 6 mg per deciliter. So when you go on to the keto lifestyle, because of the fact that the ketones that are being excreted in the urine block the uric acid, we see a spike in uric acid. In my case, it lasted a year. In the course of that year, though, I never had a gout flare. There are people that report, though, that when they go on the keto lifestyle as a gout sufferer, that initially they have some gout flares because of this initial increase in the uric acid for the reasons that I just described. So, if you decide to go down the road that I've described in this video and shift to the keto lifestyle in order to put your gout in remission, realize that in the beginning, you will be risking a gout flare because of this transient increase in uric acid. So you need to speak with your doctor about the inevitability or the possibility that a gout flare could happen and prepare for it. Make sure that you have anti-inflammatories on hand so that you can take them. And let me just tell you, it is my opinion that it is worth working through that gout flare to get situated and established in the keto lifestyle because of the long-term benefits and the possibility that you can put your gout in remission in the long term. If you enjoyed this presentation, please hit the subscription button and the bell next to it so you will know the next time that we publish a video.